every season that goes past, we end up signing someone who no one really saw, coming. Whether it was Madueke or Havertz. Okay, well, I hope that's not an indication of another kind of fringe Chelsea player coming our way. Welcome to Arsenal Unlocked. Welcome to the Red Vault, and welcome to Buy, Loan, Sell. In this segment, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the Arsenal squad as it currently stands, and we're going to try and figure out who should we loan, who should we sell, who should we keep, and who should we buy. Well, I think the first thing that we need to do is take a look at what the Arsenal squad looked like for the 25-26 season. So this is pretty much it. We had a 28-man size squad, but of course, some of these players weren't with us throughout the entirety of the season. We had Vieira, who was on loan, and we had Reiss Nelson, who likewise was on loan, which gave us a 26-man squad going into the 25-26 season. In January, Nwaneri, he went on loan. It wasn't exactly a successful loan period, but yeah, he went on loan, and that kind of leaves us where we are. So that left us for the second half of the season with a 25-man squad. And the question is, what do we do now? We still have some of these players on our books. Some of them probably aren't up to the standard, and that's me trying to put it nicely. But for sure, we need to start with who can we get out the door. We know that Arteta favors something around a 24-25-man squad. And with that in mind, we can kind of get a read for what direction we might go when it comes to how we approach this transfer market. So I think when it comes to Vieira and when it comes to Nelson, their time is done. If we can actually find clubs that are willing to purchase them, then great. Otherwise, they may be in a similar position where they go out on loan. But hopefully, yeah, we can get some buyers in for them. So Vieira, I'm going to put in the sell category. It's a pretty simple one. Likewise with Nelson. It may come to a loan, but in terms of approaching how we're going to tackle this format, I think we really should be looking to get them out the door. So, yeah. When it comes to Nwaneri, I think that's a pretty simple one as well. He either needs to be a loan or a sale. I've heard a few people say that maybe he can contribute something this season. Again, he's a young player, has shown a lot of promise, but, with someone like Max Dowman, for example, coming in, I'm not sure if he has a place in this squad, at least right now. Having said that, I wouldn't necessarily say that it's time up for him. So unless a really good offer comes through, I would be happy to put him on a loan and see what he can do, preferably to a Premier League club. So I'm going to leave him in loan. Then it comes to another player, which I think can go out on loan, which is Tommy Setford. And I think this is what the club is trying to do. So, well, I tell you what, I'm going to get to this first. We have had a player come in, which is Illan Meslier. And a lot of people have thought maybe this is a replacement for Kepa, but I think actually there are indications it's probably a replacement for Setford, and he's just coming in as a third choice option. It would be really, really difficult for me to understand how you could bring in a player like Meslier, who has been playing for the under-21s at Leeds, and even then I believe he's been struggling to get a chance in there. Someone who's completely fallen out of favour with their squad, and we're the Premier League champions. We should be aiming significantly higher. Kepa, some viewed as something of a liability when it came to performing in cup games. He kind of was given that delegation of, performing in cup games and wasn't able really to turn around performances that left us with a lot of confidence. So to bring in Meslier would be kind of obscene. Kepa seems to clear him, and yeah, I'm not sure that would be the move. So all indications to me point that he is not coming in as a Kepa replacement, but as a Setford replacement. And that will give Setford an opportunity to go out and earn his stripes and get some experience outside of being part of our squad, which makes it really easy for me to put Setford in the loan category too. And already, look, we're starting to get some shape with who might be coming in and out of the club. It makes sense. I just hope we can sell some players that we don't want on the books anymore. And speaking of selling players, you look at this squad and it is decent. This is kind of what we ran with for the most part, with, you know, the exception of Setford, which led to us becoming Premier League champions. And so now the question is, how do we improve upon this? How do we stabilize areas that maybe require some stabilization? And how do we take things to another level? How do we raise our floor? How do we raise our ceiling as a club? There are definitely moves that need to be made. And unfortunately, I think that means for Norgard that he's one of them that may need to move on. It's not typical that we sign a player and within a year we send him out the door. But, you know, it has happened before with our club, with other clubs. And so I'm not totally opposed to it. I think it's quite evident that he just hasn't been trusted by Arteta. And so the writing's kind of on the wall with him. Yeah, that's when I would sell. We didn't pay an obscene amount for him. He has got qualities that I think would transfer to other Premier League clubs and certainly other clubs within Europe. There were some reports going around that he might be interested in staying, you know, with the club. And I guess there's potential that he could kind of take on what was an El Neni role for quite a few years, and Jorginho towards the last kind of year of you know, his time playing with us. But at the same time, squad spaces are really vital, and Norgard didn't even make the squad on some occasions. So you have to wonder, is he really someone that we need to have around? Again, a player that's aging, and you wonder, you know, how much time does he have left in his career at, you know, this high level. But no, I would sell. I would say these squad places are really vital at the moment, and we want to, you know, not block another person coming in. So I would put Norgard in the sell category. And I tell you what, it makes sense because we've been linked with another player in the Premier League who would represent a significant upgrade on that second kind of center defensive midfield position. And you have to look no further than Bruno Guimaraes. So that's another player that I think could really help kind of raise the ceiling. Zubimendi, who had a decent season. Where'd he go? Yeah, he had a decent season. He started to drop off towards the end. And I think that in large part was due to the fact that we couldn't really rely on Norgard to come in and kind of deputize for him. Martin Lewis Skelly came in and was able to, you know, produce some performances that gave us a bit of leeway when it came to Zubimendi. But for sure, I think if we're having Norgard out, who isn't quite up to the level, it's appropriate we bring in some real bona fide quality. And the links are there. More than just links, there's been serious interest from us. It seems to have gone in some part through intermediaries, like Kia Jarabshan. And so you wonder if we're going to be able to get this one over the line, because there have been other deals that we've not been able to get over the line, seemingly. And we'll come to that very shortly. Stick with us, guys, here at the Red Vault. But yeah, Guimaraes is one that just makes sense. There are other players that I would be interested in because, I mean, I think Guimaraes is, you know, he really does tick a lot of boxes. He's able, in terms of central progression, to get the ball forward. He has that, you know, real Brazilian flair. He's able to take on players. He's able to find players and create space for himself. He's a great player. Another one that I was really interested in is Ayoub Boadi. And, you know, you might be listening and saying, yeah, well, who's not? You know, at the World Cup, he's kind of got everybody's attention if they didn't have it before. Would be an amazing signing. He's 18 years old. And so, you know, you'd be signing not really a prospect. I mean, he's done it at the international stage, but you'd be signing someone who within the next few years could develop and could become even better. But there seems to be strong links to Man City. And so you wonder, and they're being quoted about 100 million, I believe. You wonder if that's a deal that we could actually get done. And crucially, are we able to get something like that done within our budget? Because, yeah, it would be nice, but we're not playing a game of FIFA here. We're operating in real life. We want to sign certain players. We want to fit them within our squad and within our team. There is only so much that we can work with. If you splash 100 million on Boadi and then maybe 100 million on another player that I'm going to talk about very shortly, how much room is there to do anything else? So, yeah, it might take, for example, bringing in Emelia to take on a third goalkeeper position, or maybe another player which isn't quite at the level that we would want to be able to fill in the other parts of the squad that we need. And so that brings us to Leandro Trossard. At the time of the recording of this video, that deal is done. He's moved to Besiktas, and I mean, you know, I'm going to take this opportunity to say, what a servant for the club. He came in clutch on more than one occasion. Really was able to over deliver in terms of, if you think about the context in which he came. We were looking at signing Mudryk, didn't happen, thank God. And we ended up, you know, pivoting to Trossard. He came in for just over 20 million and produced clutch moment after clutch moment after clutch moment. And he leaves as a Premier League champion. So not a bad return whatsoever, especially given that we've sold him for about 20 million, you know, at this time in his career, in his 30s, I believe. And so, yeah, it represents a great time at the club and great service, but he's gone. That makes an incoming at that left wing position even more evident, and it's very nearly done by, you know, all of the reports that have come out that Christos Solis will be one of the people that will be taking up the left wing position at the club. So yeah, I mean, opinions are mixed on this one. You know, his numbers are great for Club Brugge, but it's the Belgian league. How much does that translate to what can be done in the Premier League? I think we probably have to temper our expectations with this one. He's coming in probably to play something of a backup role, a bit like Trossard. And from what I understand, is kind of seen as a like-for-like type of replacement. You know, his highlights are interesting. He has great backlift on his shot. He's able to take on a man. But it's not one that sets the world alight. Having said that, welcome to the club, and who knows, maybe just like Trossard, you'll be able to over-deliver, and we'll be looking back at this video, or kind of the view that people have had more generally about him, and saying to ourselves, hey, listen, this guy was a nice surprise. So, yep, Solis is in, and that kind of makes sense when it comes to replacing Trossard. Someone like Guimaraes, there's been established links there, makes sense when it comes to replacing Norgard. And these two fellas, Nelson and Vieira, kind of non-factors, weren't really part of the squad proper last season. And so then we look at the rest of the squad, and we're in pretty good shape. We have a 25-man squad with these purchases, and so we're kind of where we need to be. And you have to ask yourself, if we went into the season with these players, so we're talking about 3 purchases potentially here, and, you know, whoever stayed over from the previous season, would we be able to go up another level? Would we be able to really lock in and, you know, have a real go when it comes to the Champions League and get it over the line? Premier League looks like it's going to be as competitive as ever. Of course, we've had Guardiola leaving, which changes a lot of things in the league potentially, but there are a lot of interesting managers in and around the top 6. Pains me to say, but even teams like Tottenham are making moves, 100 million there, 100 million here. We have to really strike whilst the iron is hot and make sure that we don't fall behind. So as much as I think this is a decent squad, and I'm thrilled that we were able to get it over the line last season, there were definitely points where it felt like we crawled over the line. And if we have a season like that next year, I don't know if it will be enough. We have to do more. So you look at the squad, we're kind of around the number that we want to be. Who out of these players is on the chopping block? Kepa, he's one where we probably could, you know, be in the market for another goalkeeper. But second choice, yeah, if it came to it, if Raya got injured, we would need to replace him, but I just don't view it as a priority. You know, we're able to get Setford out on loan. We bring in Melia. I don't really see the need to sign 2 goalkeepers. I feel like the focus should be elsewhere. Raya, listen, I'm not even going to comment on Raya. This guy is probably my favorite Arsenal goalkeeper of all time. it was Seaman. Lehman was a close contender, but Raya, I just love the tranquility that he provides the back line. When it comes to shot stopping, he's there. When it comes to dealing with corners, he's there. When it comes to saving us a point or points in a game by producing moments, tremendous moments, he's there. Playing out from the back, he's there. So Raya is a guaranteed keep. That doesn't even need to be spoken about. Ben White is one that I think, due to his injuries, we might have to look to sell him. But again, I really want to look at the landscape of where we are with the other signings before making a decision about him. I've looked over the last few seasons, and maybe the last like 5 to 10. I'll put the numbers on the screen. But when you look at that, you kind of see that we buy a certain amount of players and we sell a certain amount of players on average per season. That typically doesn't exceed 8. I think it was 8 last season. But usually it's around 5 or 6 in terms of purchases. In terms of sales, we tend to sell a little more, especially in recent seasons, because we've been trying to get certain players off the books, what people have called deadwood. But yeah, for sure, there's definitely room to upgrade in certain positions. I think with Timber having sustained an injury and has had recurring injuries over the last season or two, I mean, since he came and he sustained the ACL straight away. So it might be a position that we want to bring someone in that can be a bit more stable. But yeah, I'm gonna come back to Ben White. Martin Lewis Skelly, he's really had a decent season. It came in drips and drabs, but I think towards the latter part of the season, he was able to really establish himself as someone that can be part of this squad. So I would not be looking to move him on. Mosquera is an interesting one because it's hard not to look at that Champions League final and, think to yourself what could have been. It's funny, just the 3rd and 4th place match happened for the World Cup, England versus France, and Gusto made a similar type of mistake, taking down Spence as he went into the box. And you wonder, if you had your best right back on at that point in time, would he have done that? It can happen to anyone, but just my point being, he is someone who, if a good bid came in, you would maybe think about, turning a profit and looking elsewhere. But for now, I don't think it's a priority. He's had a single season with us. He's young, definitely shows some promise. I don't want to be so quick to throw kind of the baby out with the bathwater, as they say. Let's keep him. Let's keep him for now. Calafiori, injuries, but such a good player, especially when he's able to get a few games strung together. Just honestly, it's like amazing. Timber, injuries are happening. I think he needs some real support. I'm not sure if Ben White represents that, but yeah, I would not be looking to sell him. Hincapié, Saliba, Gabriel, Rice. Come on. Is there even a conversation at this point? I mean, absolutely not. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. Every player is potentially up for discussion when it comes to these type of, this type of analysis. And there are factors that could contribute to a sale, such as how much time do they have left on their contract? Are they often injured? Is there a real significant link that we could cash in on? But no, I think these guys are pretty much in their prime. Hincapié obviously is a little below these other 3, but yeah, it's for sure these are ones that we want to keep in. Merino again, I mean, I don't want to kind of overdo the meme, but one of the best 9s in the world. Even with that aside, he's another one that's come in clutch. He's the kind of guy that you want in your squad. When I look at for example, old Alex Ferguson squads, you had players in there like Ji-Sung Park or O'Shea or Brown. You had players that, I'll be honest, they didn't cause spectacle. They weren't players that made you kind of, they didn't drop your jaw. They didn't make you sit back and in astonishment. But they really had a vital role to play when it comes to having a full squad, a squad that's able to compete across 4 competitions, is able to compete on every front. So yeah, Merino's another one which I would be looking to definitely keep in the squad. I like a lot of what he does for sure. So I mean, like I said earlier on, when you've signed a player and they've been around for 1 year, seldom will you move them on to go to other pastures. He didn't have an amazing season. There were moments where he was able to, produce something for us. I think I'd probably put him in keep. And I think part of that is just because there are other areas that we need to focus on. Okay. Martin Ødegaard. People generally seem to sit in 2 camps when it comes to Ødegaard, It seems to either be the case that he's one of the best midfielders in the world and you just don't understand what he does, bro. Or he's just trash and he's not good enough. And I'm going to be completely honest, I find myself sitting somewhere either side of the spectrum when it comes to him, depending on the game. But with a bit of pause and reaction, or reflection, sorry, he really does tie things together really neatly. And that was evident, kind of throughout the World Cup with Norway. I don't think he's the problem, but I also don't think he's the answer. I think if we look at Ødegaard to be kind of our De Bruyne, or... Well, I mean, I think De Bruyne is a good answer because there were some comparisons, a few years ago, especially when he had that great season where he scored, double-figure goals in the league. I don't think he's that. And I think if that's your expectation, then you're going to be sorely disappointed. But as someone who contributes to the way in which we build up, contributes to the press, is a captain off the pitch in terms of, keeping the squad neatly tied together, and on the pitch he's kind of dictating play, saying where players should go. I think he has a role, but don't get me wrong, there are not question marks surrounding Martin Ødegaard. I just don't know if that's the position where we're like, we have to improve right now. And that kind of brings us on to Morgan Rogers, because, what do you say? This is one which... There were reports that Rodgers was Arteta's #1 target, and for Chelsea to swoop in and pay what seems to be over the odds for sure to secure him, it leaves a bit of a bitter taste in your mouth, because you're wondering, how are we, Premier League champions, losing out to a team which consistently finishes mid-table in Chelsea? They talk about what they can become, but I mean, we've not seen evidence of that for years at this point. They rotate managers more than probably many of us rotate our underwear. So why would you go to a team that has all of that? And one of the reasons that's been reported is that Rodgers was not confident in the way in which he would be deployed tactically. I think more information is going to come out on this, so I don't want to speak to it too much. I think the key point here is we were looking to sign Rodgers for left wing reportedly, but inevitably he would have found himself in a lot of the spaces that I believe Ødegaard occupies. I think there were indications kind of last year that Arteta doesn't trust Ødegaard in the way that maybe he did in kind of years past. You look at the Champions League final, he's our captain and supposed to be one of our most influential players. He gets subbed off. It's not the first time. So I think Ødegaard stays, but I think his position in the squad as someone that's a guaranteed starter 100% is up for grabs. He needs to stay fit as well. That's something which he's not been able to do. One thing I don't like about Ødegaard, and I don't want this to turn into an Ødegaard rant, but one thing I'm not a big fan of is how he pulls out of challenges. He sustained quite a bad injury a few years ago, and since he returned, I find that he doesn't really go into challenges. He's really, really hesitant. When it comes to 50-50s in the Premier League, you have to be prepared to go in for that. You just do. Max Daumann. Well, that is one where I think he's good. Yeah, I think when it comes to Max, he's young, so you have to really handle talent like that carefully. there is an option to maybe put him out on loan. But I think for now, that's probably not the move that we need to make. Let him stay around the squad. I think he can have an impact. He's a year older, a year wiser, a year more battle-tested and adapted to our squad and to the league. So let's give him an opportunity to have some moments. I mean, he had some real moments this past season. So I think maybe we can assess that kind of like we did with Nwaneri in January and see if a loan would be a good option for him. But I think he can have an impact. So let's keep him with the squad for now. All right, so we haven't bought any players for a while. So I feel like that should be the next option for us. And 25-man squad, we want to stay around this number. So we need to sell a player. Let's start with that. You go through these players and there's one player who stands out. Gabriel Jesus. I mean, what can be said about a player that came in, performed for a few months, blew many of us away, but has just never been able to replicate that form or stay fit when he's playing consistently. This is an obvious sell for me. And the question is, can we get him off the books? I hope there's, because I mean, the wages are, pretty serious. I hope there's a team that's willing to take him. But this is Berta's job. His job is to be able to get a fee for players like this. That's part of, what he's tasked with doing. So I'm putting him sell. That needs to be done for this to be, part of a successful summer. It's not just who we buy, but who we're able to sell. This is about squad management. And now we're getting exciting, because I think for a lot of people, well, I'll say this. I think probably people are in two minds when it comes to a player like Gyökeres, because there will be some people who will say, yeah, he did a decent job, especially in the second half of the season, but there are quite obviously some technical limitations. He doesn't quite mesh with the squad that well. And you could argue that's maybe a bit harsh. But me personally, especially with Havertz's fitness, which we'll come on to after, I would keep Gyökeres. His fitness, he was always, for the most part, available. Second season, you would hope that he would, kick on and improve. And I would be looking to bring in some competition. Selling Jesus, it opens up that squad slot, and it leaves some room at striker for us to bring someone in. And the person I would bring in, if it were possible, would be Julian Alvarez. Alvarez is a player which I think his quality is undeniable. Again, reports have come out that he seems to prefer Barcelona, but that he would be open to a move to us if that were not to happen. And listen, I'm not going to be snobbish about it. There are some people, I mean, Arteta himself has said this, which I don't blame him for saying, but there have been, people within the fan base that have said, why would we sign a player that doesn't want to come to us as first choice? I completely get that, but I think you have to put yourself in the shoes of someone, who is a football player. You play for Atletico Madrid. Your experience in England was mixed. You didn't get as many games as maybe you wanted to at City. You maybe like Spanish life. You maybe, it works for you. And you can just move a few miles down the road and go to Barcelona, who, let's call a spade a spade. They're no slouches themselves. When it comes to, their reputation in world football. That's pretty undeniable, right? Probably one of your idols, Messi, was, they're probably their greatest ever player. And so it makes a lot of sense why you would want to go to Barca. If Barca can't do that, I don't think it's this big disgrace that he would want to come to Arsenal after not being able to secure that move. And if you're going to be snobbish about it and say, oh, if they don't want to come to us first choice, we don't want them. I mean, sure, but that's kind of a recipe for missing out on a lot of good players, in my opinion. Famous anecdote from many years ago that you'll hear Zlatan Ibrahimovic talking about, where he had an opportunity to sign for Arsenal and Wenger insisted that he does a trial. And, in typical Zlatan fashion, he said, Zlatan doesn't do trials. And, I'm not saying that we should have said, okay, forget the trial and just have signed him. But sometimes you need to be a little fluid when it comes to how, rigid you're going to be about these type of things. If he's available and we can get it done, there are very few players in the market that represent a true upgrade on what we're doing, and he is undoubtedly one of them. So if he's available and we can get it done, we get it done. Whether we're first or second choice, that's my opinion on it. If we weren't able to get him, I think, if I follow kind of the footsteps and the breadcrumbs, I think the next option would be Eli Junior Krupi from Bournemouth. Now, some would argue that he would be a better choice. He's younger. He's done it in the Premier League. I mean, Alvarez has as well. Probably would, come at a slightly cheaper fee. Fees are just crazy this day, these days. So it's hard to say for sure. But yeah, I think it's either or. Some people have spoken about Krupi for a potential left wing option. I think it's either or. So I'm, if I had to pick between the two, I'd probably lean for Alvarez in terms of being able to do it right here, right now. But Krupi is not a bad shout. That's one to keep an eye out for, as this transfer market and transfer window progresses. So yeah, I mean, we're looking pretty healthy. We got a 25-man squad, and it's looking pretty decent. Honestly, we've got depth in most positions. And so the question is there anything more that we can do? I think the one that stands out the most is the left wing position. So when it comes to left wing, we've obviously moved on Trossard. Looks like we're, pretty much bringing in Solis. This is a difficult one because I don't think the left winger market is especially strong. How many players are truly better than Gabriel Martinelli? He has his limitations, that's for sure, but he's no slouch. And I think sometimes the feeling can be amongst us as fans is that we want kind of our shiny new toy. And then we get bored of that as well. So I think it is probably time for Martinelli to move on to a new challenge. But, as we look through this, you're going to see there probably are only so many options that are viable at left wing. You look at the left winger market, you have Vinicius Jr., who probably stands out as the best player that could, play in that position, alongside Kvaratskhelia. The market can really, change as things progress, but you do wonder how likely is it that any of those players become available. Would we be willing to break the bank and pay record fees and record wages to sign them? I just don't think that's how we move as a football club, and I don't even think that's necessarily how we should move. So who is that player then? All right, so I've made like a little bit of a short list of players that I think could take on that position. I think we have Barcola, Yan Diomande, Nico Williams. Nico Williams, I mean, that's another one. I don't know what it is with players that play in La Liga that are just so attached to the clubs that they play for. But, I respect it. It just seems really difficult to purchase players from that league sometimes. I like Williams a lot. There's definitely question marks over his consistency. But I just don't see this as one that would necessarily be able to get over the line. Especially, I think he signed something like an 8-year contract at Athletics. So I'm probably going to say no to that one. And then we've got Barcola, strong links to Liverpool. Again, reports have come out recently that there hasn't been strong interest from Arsenal lately. But he's definitely one that I think would improve us in the left wing position. I'm not sure if it's as much as people would like to think when it comes to replacing Martinelli, but definitely he has something. And when you look at a market which is really just not that strong at the moment when it comes to the left wing position, it makes a lot of sense. Again, the links are stronger with Liverpool at the moment, so I don't know if that's something that could viably be done. But definitely one to keep your eye out for. And then Yan Diomande, again, the fees that are being quoted are pretty excessive at like 100 million plus, but there are links there linking us to him. And I don't hate it. I do not hate it. I think out of the two, Barcola is probably a little bit more proven, so I would lean in that direction. But it does make me wonder, I'm going to be honest with you, because, you know, PSG, one of the best attacks in the world. They have Kvaratskhelia, and Barcola is kind of playing second fiddle to him. So are we able to go up another level by, you know, playing or bidding and vying for players that are kind of on that second rung of you know, greatness? Time will tell. Time will tell. But yeah, it's, like I said, a restricted market. Probably have to go for one of a few options. I'm probably going to go Barcola. But yeah, honestly, don't sleep on that Yan Diomande train, because some surprises could happen. All right. I mean, that's already leaving us in pretty decent shape. And so, yeah, I mean, just a quick shout out. Some of the other players that I was looking at for striker included Lautaro Martinez. I'm not sure if that would represent the best deal. He's a good player, but more of a traditional striker, I think, than someone who has link-up play, which I think would mesh better with us, like Alvarez. And yeah, this puts us at a 25-man squad. It's kind of where we want to be. I think we're looking pretty good there. I don't know. What about you guys? Who would you sign? Who would you loan? Who would you sell? What do you think about the options that I've gone with? Would this represent a good window as it stands? You know, make sure to put it in the comments. It's really interesting because I'll tell you one thing. Every season that goes past, we end up signing someone who no one really saw, you know, coming, whether it was Madueke or Havertz. Okay, well, I hope that's not an indication of another kind of fringe Chelsea player coming our way. But yeah, it's you know, I think there will be a few surprises to happen yet, and I'm interested to see. Before we go, Ben White, I'm on the fence as to whether or not he is someone that will be able, you know what, it's not about his quality, because with enough kind of, you know, game time, I think he still can perform. You know, he's not even 30 yet. I think probably another season he could definitely contribute. You look at injuries being sustained to Saliba. There's debates as to whether or not he's going to require surgery. You know, Arsenal are monitoring that at the moment. But the need to go in for someone that can help on the right side of defense may increase more greatly. And I just don't know if we can rely on Ben White. So, for the sake of the window, I am going to say we sell Ben White. And we bring in Kayode from Brentford. Really impressed with what he was able to do last season. Young player, early 20s, really had some grit and some steel. Has that long throw in with him, which I'm sure Arteta would love. And, you know, we really are at the top of the food chain at the moment. So I feel like, you know, I spoke about Alex Ferguson earlier. When you think about Man United, how they would go to Premier League teams and say, we're taking this player, we're taking that player, we want him, we want him. And those players would come in and be able to really contribute to the squad. I think Kayode represents a player that could be a really good acquisition. But no, this is what I'm going to go for. So we've got Ilem Melier, Bruno Guimaraes, Christos Solis, Julian Alvarez, Bradley Barcola, and Kayode from Brentford. We're going to put Waneri on loan, get a proper loan, hopefully within the Premier League. Setford, if he can get a Premier League loan, that would be amazing. But I think even Championship or maybe one of the other leagues like League 1 or something like that. Vieira thank you, but goodbye. Nelson, likewise. Norgard, I mean, listen, I think there's a chance he stays if we don't find a seller, and he kind of is, you know, just in the background, essentially. Trossard is gone. Jesus needs to go. It's time to go. Martinelli, that's a difficult one because I think, you know, grass sometimes seems greener, but I think, yeah, that's probably something that we need to do. And then Ben White, he's had good years with us. Happy you could win the league, but I think it's time to move on. I think there are players that can come in and can contribute more to the squad and be fit more often. And so that brings us to our final squad. 25 players. I believe this represents an improvement on what we had last season. It raises our floor, it raises our ceiling, and hopefully provides a platform for us to go back to back. Premier League champions, Arsenal, season 26-27. You heard it here first. Let's hope so. Make sure to subscribe. Let me know in the comments what you think about my choices, about what choices you would make. And that's one more for the vault.